Are you having problems in your marriage? Do things seem like they're irretrievably broken? Is there a chance that you could come together again? Stay tuned. One of the great joys of my life as a priest is being able to talk to people that bring hope into the world. We're living in a world in which there's a great deal of struggle with marriages being successful. It says like 50% of marriages in our country fail. And we're looking around for some kind of hope. And so I called you all the way from Madison, Wisconsin to come on and give us a whole bunch of a hope. Julie,
thank you.
God bless you.
Thank
you very much. Frank, thank you very much for coming and being with us.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to hear the story of how you got to such a situation where you thought the marriage was going to fall apart. Am I correct in saying that?
Absolutely. Correct.
Yes.
It had fallen apart. First of all, before we get into that, tell me a little bit about yourself. And well, first of all, what's your background with regard to the Lord Jesus? Are you committed to Christ, or was Christ important a part of your life as you?
Yes, I was born and raised Catholic, and all the way up through confirmation and till we got married. Once we had children, I wanted to make sure that the children were raised Catholic and raised in the faith. But for me, it seemed more like a duty or an obligation rather than worship. So
it wasn't really like your relationship with Christ was maybe a function, or what are you saying?
It absolutely was a function until Christ helped save our marriage, and Christ was tangible to me.
Wow.
And I realized what was possible through Christ. That really spoke to me, and that certainly changed my faith life.
Frank, what about yourself? What about yourself?
As a cradle Catholic, right up through confirmation, I was there on Sundays. Family was part of the church. Mom and dad teaching religious education, all of those things that go with being a Catholic family. One of my uncles is actually a Catholic priest. He was the pastor of our neighborhood parish. He was over for dinner often, so I always had that in my family life. As I went off to school, I kind of just let that become an afterthought, and rather than even as a function of my life, it was just there on the other side of the street as I walked along in my own little path, creating this life for myself and not really taking note of what Christ was asking me to do.
All right.
And that lasted really up until 10 years ago. And really over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, watching her faith journey has really turned my life around.
Ooh, okay.
She's been an inspiration with regard to her faith in the Lord and my own conversion to wanting to be more like her and more like Christ.
Wow. Tell me a little bit now about how did you meet, and go through the story of your relationship, if you would.
Well, we went to the same high school, but we never met. Not until, a party one summer of a mutual friend, and later on we started. So this is like college, when you're in college age? Yeah. Yes, college age. And we started dating and found we had a lot of things in common and dated for a long time. It was
How long?
4 years.
Whoa, so this wasn't just kind of falling off the turnip truck, huh?
No, I didn't fall off the turnip truck, but I fell in love, and I was head over heels, but even our courtship was a little bit turbulent, and I thought, well, we weathered that, the highs and lows.
What were some of the things that kind of were concerned?
I suppose communication was an issue there, or I think I have a very strong personality, and Frank does too, and you're both working jobs, and you want to focus on what's important to you. And it's hard to decide.
So a little bit more self-centered.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think we were spending so much time having fun and being with one another that we never worried about communicating with one another, learning about one another. As time went on, that created some hardship in our relationship.
What does that mean? What do you mean by that? Go a little bit deeper with that.
Once we got married, instead of being able to go off and have dinner in another city or go to the movies everywhere, and then children came along, we couldn't just go spend the money or have fun. I was busy then raising the kids and focusing on them, and
I was still looking for ways to play.
Oh, gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
I thought, he's a big boy. He can take care of himself. I literally have children sucking the life out of me, and I need to focus on them. They need me more, and I thought he would be just fine.
You can almost develop a jealousy with.
Absolutely. I judged our priorities had changed.
Right.
That suddenly she was this family-oriented person, and our relationship wasn't at the center of her attention any longer. That suddenly the children were the center of her attention.
Whoa,
and
interesting. Yeah.
My concept or my thought was always that we had to be the center first, and then the children built on that, and the rest of our family created this ring of protection, but we had to be at the center, and I thought we had lost that.
Tell me a little bit about could you describe what kind of went on? You said you lost it, but could you give me a little bit more of a description of what was happening in terms of
on a daily basis,
as it was falling apart, if you will? Yeah.
On a daily basis, we each had a full-time job, and then we had part-time jobs, and just little bits and pieces, and it started to be just an exchange of information. The kids need this, pay the babysitter, pick up the babysitter then. There wasn't a lot of deep, intimate communication, and we still had a lot of fun. We could take up the kids and go play and do something fun, but I honestly think we did a lot of things to keep ourselves busy, so we didn't have to deal with the serious issues about, okay, are we paying our bills on time? Where do we see ourselves 5 years from now? Where do we see ourselves 10 years from now? Let's just sugarcoat all that stuff and go off and have fun, and oh, by the way, pick up some milk on your way home, or else.
And then as we grew and I took an off-shift job, I was working 12-hour shifts from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Our time together was gone. We were individuals living a married life. We were married singles. She was at work when I was at home. I was at work when she was at home. So we never saw one another.
And and if he would be home at lunch with the kids and I would stop home, and if the kitchen was a mess or the kids were still in their PJs, I would be livid. Yeah. And I wouldn't even have to say words, but I could just give him this look that meant, you've disappointed me again.
You could see the disdain in those moments. And I wasn't being responsible. There's no question that I was still living this single life with kids.
But you're working 12 hours a day.
Working 12 hours a day, and I was, partner in another small sandwich shop in our hometown, and so we were always busy. Never keeping track of our own relationship.
What's fascinating when you're saying that, I'm just in my mind thinking, you're really not that different than a big number of married people today. The family that has to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs in order to what? What could you speak a little bit about what kind of subconsciously was your goal in doing all this? Was there a level of finance or something, or getting along like everybody else did?
Yeah, sure. Keeping up with the Joneses had a lot to do with it, I suppose. But also then, once you are working so hard, you still feel selfish, and I wanted time for myself at night. I didn't want to go to bed when he went to bed. I just wanted some peace and quiet.
Yeah, of course.
Or for him, I think you probably wanted an escape, so you wanted to go play softball or something like that.
I continued to do those things that I had done when we were dating, that I had done before we were dating. I was playing softball 2 or 3 nights a week, golfing in a golf league. So all those moments that I had an opportunity to be with her, I wasn't spending with her either. And I think that was kind of a process for me to stay away from home, a reason for me to stay away from, because when I was at home it was, why isn't the laundry put away? How come the grass hasn't been mowed today? And what about those dishes on the sink? This was my judgment, what was happening at home. She was being the responsible one, trying to take care of the kids, and I was off trying to be this cool guy,
Yeah. Then what happened? Did it reach a breaking point?
It did reach a breaking point. As I was working this off-shift job, spending more and more time with people from work, playing on the softball company, or the company softball team.
Were you good?
Well, I guess. Fairly. A relationship blossomed, I guess, between a woman at work and I. Ended up in a 9-month extramarital affair outside of my marriage with Julie that really tore at the core of our relationship.
Was it something that you knew about Julie, or was it? Did they really try to make?
I got an anonymous phone call warning me that.
How long into this? You said 9 months.
At the early into the relationship.
Yeah.
So there was, immediately my world was devastated
Yes.
and there was all this mistrust. But Frank reassured me that, no, I'm just being set up. Nothing is really happening.
Oh, so you were lying
I
about
was lying. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. You lied about
Yeah,
that.
this huge house of cards. There was just a bunch of lies piled up one on top of the other.
Wow.
Yeah, went on for 9 months.
So what were you believing him, you think? Or?
I wanted to believe him,
You
but
wanted to
no,
believe him.
something inside me was just throwing up serious red flags.
And how many children have you got now?
We had two. We had
children.
two little girls at this point.
Okay.
And I was just cautious and suspicious all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what happened? Okay, after the 9 months, what?
Well, actually, part of the turmoil of that 9 months was our first separation. She found out about the affair. We were arguing one day. I said, "No, that's it. I want to sell the house. Let's get out of this thing," and I moved out. So we were separated for about 2 months at that point. And then just a huge event in our lives, a confrontation between her and I and the other woman at a baseball diamond. Oddly enough, playing softball. One night I was supposed to take the girls. We're trading off responsibilities with the girls, and I stopped by the house. I said, I'm not feeling so great. Another one of my lies. And I'm just going to go home and sleep. Well,
Home to your parents'
home
house.
to my parents' house where I was living. And she wanted to check out the story. The girls wanted to say goodnight, so they called my parents' house, and my mom said, he's not here. He went to play softball. And immediately, Julie packed the girls up and headed for the ball diamond. And this huge confrontation ensued.
And the other woman was there.
Was
with you?
there? Yeah, it was the company softball team. It was a night of softball with the friends from work. You want to continue with that, or at one point she asked, you're not here for the softball, and for whatever reason, I pointed at the other woman in the stands, and Julie took a swing, and dropped one of our daughters out of her arms. Never touched the other woman, but during the melee, someone had called the police, so there was a police report filed, and the next day, Julie was arrested at our house on an assault charge, and was
Get
taken
out
into
of here! Hello.
Well, in addition to being livid and taking a swing at the other women wearing masks, I also dropped my shoe and then proceeded to pick up my shoe and smack him across the temple with the heel of my shoe.
Gotcha.
And clawed at his neck. And
Yes.
And a police report was filed, and I was arrested the next day.
Wow. How long did you spend in the clink?
He came and got me out right away, and I was. It's funny. It's sick because I was upset that he bailed me out of jail using our house payment money, which we didn't have much in the first place. I had called my mother to come and bail me out, but he beat her to it, and I wasn't even happy about that. I was livid with him. I didn't want to see him.
Well, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back. I want to know what happened, and I want to know how impossible it seems. Could you ever get together and be sitting here holding hands and being close to each other in love? Listen to this message, and then we're going to be right back. I have written a new book, and I'm excited for you to have it. It's called, get this title, 5 Seconds a Day to a Successful Marriage. I know you probably didn't hear that, but it's really 5 seconds a day to a successful marriage. I have in this book the key to allowing your marriage, if you're madly in love, to get better. If your marriage perhaps has reached a plateau and you're not growing anymore, this can bring new life and hope. And even if your marriage has really gone beyond the realm of possible joy and growth, this can be the answer to bringing new life into your marriage. I try to understand what's going on in marriages. What are some of the problems? Is it money? Is it communication? And what about 5 seconds? What does it mean, only 5 seconds? 5 seconds in our life can change our life. If a doctor comes up to you and says, "I'm sorry, you have cancer," 5 seconds, it could change the whole direction of your life. Someone walks up to you and says, "You just won the lottery." Whoa, your whole life can be changed. Or someone comes to you and says, "I love you." That can be the change. Please, I want you to have this book for yourself or perhaps for people in your life that you know that are struggling in their marriage. The title again is 5 Seconds a Day to a Successful Marriage. Look on your screen. You see all the information of how you can call in right now, or you can send for email, you can send by mail. And please, for only $8 or more if you can, this book can be yours. And believe me, in 5 seconds, your life will be changed. Frank and Julie, you're telling us a story that is overwhelming in terms of the seriousness of the conflict and almost irrevocable break in your marriage. What was the signs of hope that came from all this?
None at first.
Yes.
I proceeded to move in with my mother for a while. I just needed some emotional and spiritual support, so I took the girls and moved in with my mom, and we were separated again.
What was going on with the girls?
They would go back. Frank moved back into our house, and they would just go back and forth, you know, day to day between, you know, my mom's house, our home, and they were little at the time. They were 2 and 3, so they were, praise God, they don't have much memory of that scene at the ballpark.
Now, when you mentioned that you swung at the woman and you dropped the baby, was the baby all right?
Yes, she was fine.
Okay,
she was fine.
I just wanted to make sure that we're not.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
she was fine.
Tell us, is there a road to recovery out of this?
A long road.
Okay.
It was a long road. We were separated for a long time, and then eventually Frank's affair ended, probably because the situation was too volatile.
Yeah.
And we moved back in together.
Did you continue to have contact with her and him at all, or just?
Your affair pretty much ended with that night.
That night. I haven't seen or spoken to her since that night.
Okay.
So.
Right. It was over then. So we tried to piece back together our relationship, and we were living together again, but we were just a shadow of our former selves. And we even started to say, okay, when this really ends, you get the TV, I get that picture.
Already.
Yeah, we were just divvying up the goods. I was resigned to the fact that it was over. I didn't have a lot of hope. And then
we were struggling too. I mean, the financial devastation of me living that double life was starting to take its toll. We were behind in our mortgage payments. One day she came out of work and her car had been repossessed because we weren't making the car payments. So we were struggling, there's no question, financially and emotionally, and we just couldn't come back from that on our own, as much as we tried. And then there was a letter. She was gone on the weekend with her mom. A letter came certified mail that I disposed of, not very well, but it was a lawsuit, and Julie's wages were going to be garnished because of a debt that I owed the other woman.
Oh my gosh.
So I had.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh, that's
so I thought now I didn't just have to endure the affair. I actually had to pay for it too. Yeah. Wow. Since my wages were being garnished, and that was, I had been praying for a sign from God on whether or not to file for divorce, and I honestly took that as a sign to file for divorce. So I did. I called my mother and said, "Can I borrow some money? I want to file for divorce," and she helped me out, and I filed. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's odd because on that same weekend I was gone with my mom. She had given me an article from a magazine about the Retrieval program. And I thought, I didn't say anything to her, but I thought, thanks, Mom, but no thanks. It's over.
Beyond hope.
Beyond hope.
So Retrieval is what? We've spoken with Father Bracken before, giving us a little bit of a background, but kind of briefly, would you explain just what is Retrieval?
Retrieval is a peer ministry. It's a program for couples in hurting marriages, and honestly, it can be for any range of struggles. It doesn't have to be at the crisis point we were at. We honestly believe Retrieval could help anyone with any communication breakdown. Mm-hmm. It's true that some couples come to Retrieval if they're considering separation or divorce, but it would be helpful to any marriage on the planet, I guarantee.
So, how did you get into it? You got a little flag saying, hey, think about this from your mother's article.
Her mom had given her the article, and the divorce proceedings had started. We were going through this summer talking about divorce, splitting things, and one day I was at the house dropping off the girls, and for whatever reason, she took the article out of the magazine rack and pitched it at me and said, you know, we might have been able to try this. We might have been able to try this, but you know, you blew it, buddy. This isn't. So I called the number right away.
I was stunned because I didn't think he would call anybody or follow through with anything. I mean, this is just the judgment I had that he's not going to take care of anything. He's not responsible at all. I was stunned when he made a phone call.
So I dialed the 800 number and started the registration process. Got us on the list for a weekend, middle of the summer in July, and
I weaseled out of it.
That weekend rolled around, and her sister was moving that weekend, and Julie weaseled out of it, and I was like, well, maybe that's my sign that it's just time to let it go. But the city, Minneapolis, St. Paul holds one weekend a month for Retrieval. So when I called to say we weren't coming, they said, well, how about next month? I said, yes, put us on the list for next month. So she was out of excuses, you know.
I was scared. I thought maybe he really is serious.
Yeah.
This was unprecedented.
We had spent so much time beating each other up, and me beating myself up personally for the pain I had caused. But that whole summer, you know, we'd pull up to a stop sign, and the same model of car would pull up next to us that the other woman drove, and you could see it in her face, the hurt, the pain. Ooh. And I'd apologize and ask for forgiveness just constantly. And we went on our Retrieval weekend, and the grace, the Holy Spirit's presence on that weekend was just palpable. It was unbelievable.
Tell me a little bit about that. I'm curious. We're dying to know what force could allow this. I mean, you're going in one direction, and all of a sudden you're turning in the other.
And for me, I thought, on a Retrieval weekend, there are 3 teen couples and a priest who share their stories of basically how they've been to hell and back. And I kept waiting for somebody to have a story similar to ours, and they didn't. There was no infidelity, but it was, they were living and breathing the same pain. It didn't matter that their story wasn't the same. The despair was the same. The hopelessness was the same. And I thought, wow, if these people can make it, we can make it. There was a couple who talked about abuse and alcoholism, and I thought, physical abuse, alcoholism, and they made it. There they are sitting together. I was stunned, and what really happened is Jesus started to show me that he's not the only one to blame. You know, there's some work to be done, there's some change to be done, and it starts with me. And that was probably something I wasn't prepared to hear until that very moment. Wow. So God's timing was perfect.
So you had the weekend, and there was all of a sudden an open door to hope.
But then I was really in trouble.
Yes.
Because all of my supporters were supporting me to divorce Frank.
Gotcha.
And say get rid of him. So everyone that was on my bandwagon had not experienced Retrieval, had not experienced this hope, and suddenly the only person I had was the one I had turned everyone against. So we were united. It was God and Frank and I.
And I drove a semi right through that open door. I mean, there was no stopping me.
He was on a mission to save this marriage.
We were attending a weekend 7 hours away from our house. And there were follow-up sessions. The Retrieval program starts with a weekend experience, but there's 12 sessions following that where you sit down and go more in depth into the topics you talk about on the weekend: forgiveness, trust, personality styles, things like that. We had to drive those 7 hours back every weekend.
7 hours?
Yes.
We were desperate.
There was a commitment, so we made a commitment right away. And we've been doing it ever since. That was 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
So what you're really saying is there's hope, isn't there?
Absolutely.
There's hope even for the most hopeless situation.
Without question.
That things can happen. And the Lord uses this Retrieval experience to open doors of hope and allow reconciliation. Yeah. And
our 2 youngest daughters are thankful for that.
Yeah, since Retrieval.
They wouldn't be here without
Retrieval.
Retrieval.
So you had the 2 before Retrieval and then the 2 after before. Yeah. Listen, what I want to do, your story is beautiful, but I'd love to spend some time, just a few moments of prayer if we could. We're going to have a commercial and then come on back. But let's pray for some couples and see if maybe this hope could start to enliven hopeless situations. Listen to this message, please, and we're going to be right back. I have written a new book for you, and it has an impossible title, 5 Seconds a Day to a Successful Marriage. Impossible, huh? No. This can be a key to bringing new life if you're madly in love with your partner. But maybe you've reached a plateau and things aren't growing the way they should. Maybe even you're separated and things seem hopeless. I want to tell you that with this book and with the 5 seconds of challenge, your marriage can turn into a great, great experience of love and power. Please, look right on the screen. There's where you can get in touch with us, and you can order this book for only $8 or more if you can. I want to send this to you, and I want to allow your marriage to come to new life and new hope. Remember, 5 seconds a day to a successful marriage. Do it. Julie, you wanted to say something that the importance of Christ in this whole process.
Yeah, we worked really hard to repair our marriage, but there's no doubt that I could not have done this on my own. I could not have come to the point of forgiveness or to make the decision to trust without Christ's hand in Retrieval and on our marriage, and seeing that He really wanted unity for our marriage.
Yeah. What part does prayer play in your marriage, in your relationship with each other?
For me, it's a constant dialogue all day long.
Yeah.
And it's helpful that we share that with our kids now, too.
Okay.
Yep. And for us, part of the communication technique we've learned through Retrieval, for me, every time we write to one another, it starts with a prayer.
What do you mean, every time you write to one another? What does that mean?
Retrieval's communication technique involves writing letters on a feeling level to our spouse.
So that's kind of a getting away from sometimes the fear of face-to-face contact.
Right.
Yes.
A little
This
safety
opens
of
a little safety
the letter. And it allows you to walk away from the milk, eggs, and butter conversations that you have over the kitchen table or whatever. It gets you a little closer to your spouse, helps you understand them at a different level. And for me, every one of those letters starts with a prayer. So,
would you reach out and put your hands
Sure.
right here on
Absolutely.
this? I'm just going to pray over these
Yes.
people. Lord, there's all kinds of people that really need help with their marriage. Frank and Julie have spoken to us of great hope. Lord, would you enter into those hopeless situations, those situations that are really tough, and work your miracle. Bring your peace, bring your love, and all across the world, let people know that the power of Christ can do the impossible. Thank you. Gosh, and God bless you, Julie and Frank, and may you continue to grow with each other, and may you continue with courage to share your love and bring your hope to others. May Jesus' love for you always make you smile.